Have you confirmed whether or not it's true that the word Japa is now in the Oxford English Dictionary? I will wait for your answer. But while I'm waiting, Fanimerus is a word in the English dictionary.
Fanimerus.
Fanimerus. It's an extraction from southwest Nigeria. Fanimora.
Oh, Fanimora.
And here, Japa is now in the English dictionary. I've not checked, just so you know. But we want to have a Fanimerus conversation this afternoon, this morning. And though not very, very exciting, because I've been hearing about brain drain since the 80s, since I was in primary, secondary school. They didn't call it Japa then. They called it brain drain. And in fact, it informed public service announcement on television at the time, popularly called Andrew.
Andrew.
It was also in a song by Veno Mariokai titled Nigeria Go Survive, says, Andrew, no check out though. Because that checking out was the brain drain. It would seem like we have a resurgence of that of late. So let's have conversations around it, because there's an assumption that a new generation stepping out into the job market will bring with them fresh ideas and new energy, paving the way forward for their country's future. Is that the case? Today, this brain drain is emerging as a major concern for the future of Nigeria, where talented and capable professionals, doctors, engineers, and more are leaving the country. I remember we were having a conversation with a former Minister of Labor, Chief Ngige, and he was saying, quote me, we have enough doctors in Nigeria. That was about 5 years ago. Do we? Now? Recently, chief medical directors of hospitals came out and said, in 2 years, if we continue at this trend, there will be no more, we won't have medical practitioners in the hospitals anymore. And the same thing is happening in the education sector. Same thing is happening in virtually every space of life. And it will seem like HR professionals and practitioners are not sleeping easy. Let's have conversations this morning. Professor Abiola Awoshika-Fakutu joins us this morning. She is the rector and founding CEO of Olawoye Awoshika School of Innovative Studies, Oasis. Thank you so much for joining us, madam.
Thank you for having me. Also
joining us here is Dr. Funke Medu, who is an HR development practitioner. Thank you for joining us. As well as Mr. Biodun Showme, who is a social commentator. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start with you, Prof. Should we say this is the return of Andrew?
Absolutely, and a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because when Andrew was going, Andrew was being pushed. It was not being pulled.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
But now this Japa syndrome, there's also a pull. So when you say Nigeria is not conducive for me anymore, I need to go abroad, and you apply. You might get it, you might not get it. You might get a visa, you might get a, whatever. But now, because the boomers, and about my age now, retiring. So the baby boomers are retiring over there. That's the pool. So they're going to need a lot of...
So the job market is bulkier now.
Exactly. And when they retire, they need medical practitioners, they need nurses, so they open the gates. That was why when you push, they pull. Organizations are actually advertising in Nigeria for people to come to the UK, to come to the US, to come to Canada, to fill the gap in their employment. So that makes it even much easier for people to, pack up their bags and go. Now, not forgetting that Nigeria is struggling right now, and there's nothing that you can say, something to write home about, that maybe my life will be better. So they don't see any progress in Nigeria, but they see the lucrative environment over there, and so everyone is even selling lands, houses, and pulling like 20 million to Japa is not cheap. So it's like, I mean, there's a gentleman sold his house, sold his cars, brand new cars. He was very well to do. He went to Canada. Now when you call him, it's like, hold on, I have a client, I will get back to you in about 15 minutes or 30 minutes. The client is he's a cab driver. Yes. So now he's trying to come back, but it's too late. He has sold everything. So it's a dicey situation. If you go there and you find it easy, God bless you. But if you don't, my own relatives now, they're going through the same thing that I went through 40 years ago in the UK. Why?
Okay, Dr. Wedu, I don't even know where to begin this question with you, because maybe one angle that I would look at, because something that she said now registered in my mind that perhaps technology, which is supposed to be an improvement, made it even a little more dicier, much easier for people to say they want to leave, because the West, wherever else, is only going to advertise the good side. No one advertises the back end until you begin to experience it, just as you say. So what do you think? Do you think it's avoidable, this Japa syndrome?
Well, let me take it from where Prof stopped. Consequences. You see, the question is, why are people leaving? And when you want to solve a problem, to say whether it's avoidable, you have to look at the root cause, isn't it? So if we look at why are they leaving, probably if we start looking at the root cause of why they're leaving, and we start tackling those issues from the whys, then we can say, can we avoid it? But again, some things are just normal. You see, world over, time immemorial, people migrate to where they have better opportunities. But in our own case, bringing it back home in Nigeria, where are people living? People want better opportunities, abroad. Like Prof said, we have issues at home. With inflation as high as 34.8, even rising. We had 34.6, now we've moved to 34.8, and we don't know where we are going to have a cap. So we have big issues. And talking about technology, whether technology is going to help or not, maybe when we look at it, technology has pros and cons. It can help with the Japa. I think when we get to another point of this discussion, we should also look at Japada. So we should start also talking about Japada. I do research, and there's a conversation, there's even a research we're working on now. And in my mind, I'm like, let's start thinking about Japada. Maybe when the research figures are out, we can have a conversation around this. So technology can help with both Japa and probably Japada. But more importantly, we can maybe reduce the rate and also even get value, okay, using technology as well. Who says that the skills that are being learnt abroad, you see, abroad, the Western world, they are very developed. Another reason people go is for infrastructural deficit that we have here. People want good health. I have a friend in her 50s. She was comfortable in Nigeria, but she said, I'm getting old. I'm a widow. My kids are grown. They are abroad. Who is going to take care of me here? So she just wanted a place where she's sure of good medical attention. I had another one that, thieves came to her house twice in a new place. She couldn't recover from the trauma. She wanted a safer environment. So by the time we start looking at these kind of issues, and it's not just about you and I, it has to be a multi-stakeholders approach, from government policies, intentional policies in place locally here, employers looking at how we can even retain people. We have to be beautiful brides as employers as well to make people want to work with us. And maybe from a patriotic point of view, if we all start looking at how can we make Nigeria better, maybe some of us would want to stay back and make homework, So, I mean, it's a big and holistic face that we have to look at to solve this problem.
Mr. Shomi, she said something latterly about us coming together to make Nigeria a better place so that this Japa thing will reduce. But between the people and the governments, please note the choice of governments, does it rest mainly on the people, or what the governments at various levels are doing to make Nigeria a better place? Because the main reason why they are leaving, no light, no water, no good health care. And it seems to me that the list of the things that they're complaining about all rest with government to sort out.
Well, I probably would have a different perspective to this very issue. I don't think we've taken an holistic perspective, perception of the problem of what we call Japa. Japa is different from brain drain, completely different. Brain drain is more or less a voluntary departure, exiting from your own situation in search of maybe job satisfaction. It's not necessarily driven by monetary incentive or anything. So it's totally different. You may choose to relocate. When people are relocating, the era of Andrew.
Sometimes it is. The doctors who are leaving because they're not well paid, because they're not enough good enough facilities in our hospitals.
Yes, the era of Andrew.
We have research to back that up, actually, Alero.
The era of Andrew is totally different. You can have researches and all that. You need to look at the whole global system. How did you arrive at where you are when it comes to Japa? Don't forget that in 1980, from 1980 onwards, when we had the new liberalism, the post-capitalism evolving into neoliberalism, and then you see all what happened with the economy when the capitalist economy was being dismantled deliberately in a way that to make public institutions inefficient. It's the same story all over Europe and America. In a way that public institutions became inefficient, states funding got reduced, and then deliberately promote the private sectors. After achieving that, in a way that workers were constantly under attack in those countries, in a way that the employers were the one determining the wages, not longer the union. So in that the consequences of that, one of it is that there are so many low-paid jobs which the citizens are no longer willing to undertake. So that has created a gap in the labor market in those countries. The second aspect, which we have not touched on, is globalization. The effect of globalization, which was an agenda pushed by World Trade Organization. The effect of globalization is such that it created so many interconnected linkages among different countries in the whole world, including the people, including labor and capital, in a way that it is easier, you don't look at your own country as your country alone, you look at the whole economy, the global economy as interconnected. Consequently, it created the freedom of capital and the freedom of labor. Wherever capital goes, labor can go with it. So when you have a situation where globalism now took away the resources from many of those countries, and I will give you a very good example. When you look at this Japa syndrome, people are traveling. They are selling houses, selling cars, selling so many valuable things, to escape the country. What do you think is going on? It's capital flight from a poor country like Nigeria that is moving to develop economics like UK, Germany, Spain, America.
So there are a lot more
consequences
of this
Absolutely.
whole
It's beyond just people migrating.
I agree. While I understand what you're saying, it all comes back to one thing. Nigeria is losing.
Absolutely.
Nigeria is losing brains.
That is the point. It's
Nigeria
not only
is losing
brains,
human
we are
resources.
losing money.
Let me just quickly bring you up to speed. We just received one of the conversations we just. By the way, you can also contribute to this conversation on Sunrise CTV. Osasogboro is saying that government should do everything to stop the brain drain syndrome. And I'm going to come to you, madam. Says, I'm struggling to get an ENT specialist in Abuja hospitals. ENT specialists in Abuja hospitals. And I know that teachers are also struggling in that regard. I know that practically every sector in the country is losing, we're losing brains. That's the whole idea. We're losing economies, we're losing resources. Again, I ask, could it have been avoided?
Well, probably to an extent. You see, globalization, if I have to take that word, you can't restrict movements. You know, it's been like that. But the brain drain for us, I mean, let's bring it back home. Let's even leave, let's forget what is happening in other places. Let's bring to our own home. So brain drain here, there are things we could have done. And like I said, it has to be a multi-stakeholders approach. Government has a role to play. Professionals have a role to play. You and I, all of us here, we have a role to play as citizens. So maybe not totally avoidable, because you can't stop human beings. But the brain drain,
I get that.
We can have things, systems in place that can even make people that have left to still contribute back home, number one. Okay. Sorry, let me land on my point. So in Malaysia, for example, they have incentives for people that have left to bring them back home, to contribute their expertise home. And that's why I said, even governments need to have deliberate approach. There has to be a policy angle to this, and it has to be intentional. So if someone cannot, you don't really have to, people contribute back home. I say I don't have a problem with people leaving sometimes, because they also need to get the expertise that we don't have back home. Where will they learn these things from? Is it our educational system that is not very good as well? But let them bring what they've learned to help home. And government needs to make it viable. The government needs to make it attractive. So that's why I think government has a role in that area, to make it attractive for people that are abroad to bring their expertise to help us back home.
The reason I asked you
and the people that are home, to reduce the attraction to want to go out.
Okay.
So those are the things we need to look at.
The reason I asked you, and I'm going to bring it to Prof. The reason I asked the question is because of her PR development, practice.
HR.
Beg your pardon. HR, thank you. Development practice, sorry. So the question for me is, okay, just recently, Prof, and I don't know how you felt about it. The University College Hospital, the students, not the hospital itself, the students in the hospital have not had electricity supply for upwards of 80+ days, more than 82 days. No electricity for students of a University College Hospital. Once vintage, once prime, once the attraction of the globe. That's for students. University of Ibadan itself, the entire institution, have had their fair share of that. I was speaking to, the issue of human capital development, and the fact that when those things are not going the way it should go, it's an opportunity for people to say, if I can afford it, I'm a go.
I'm out of here.
So that's why I asked if it was possible to bring down the potential or the propensity for people to say, I want to leave my Nigeria, or I want to send my children out of the country. Of course, I understand that diaspora people always bring money to us. That's good. But must we lose brains as a result as well?
Well, absolutely not. And I think she addressed that issue. There's a governmental role to play. And there is, the role that we play as citizens of Nigeria. The government needs to work on, and power has always been a problem for us. I don't know why. It's not rocket science. Other countries in the world do it, and they get it right. So I don't know what we're doing with power that, that would, I mean, it's uncalled for for a university, an institution of higher learning, to not have power. But that's as an aside. We as individuals, and I believe in governmental role, but not very much, especially since the government has been there all this time. Governments, like she said, yeah, all this time, and still no progress. I think we can do things as individuals as well. Make our companies attractive. And how do we make them attractive? Create spaces where people know that even in all of this turmoil, this company is taking care of me. I can afford to stay in this country, and I can survive here. Barring that, I think technology is probably a way to keep the brain drain down. We can't stop it. It's a dicey situation. But for example, and again, I'll give examples from my situation. I have teachers, and my teachers were looking at leaving. And what were they gonna go do? They were going to go abroad. And we convinced them by me, buying them laptops and introducing them to online teaching, to say, okay, you can still enjoy being in Nigeria, your people, and you can teach for colleges abroad. How's that? And at least, 5 or 6 of them accepted, that they were going to try that. So that is, for me, in my little space. How come many more of us are not able to do that?
Okay, that speaks to what she was talking about earlier that I responded to about us making Nigeria more attractive. That is one angle.
Yeah. But there's this also, and I'll come to you, Mr. Showomi. Okay, so there's this email from Festus Akimboyewa, this message on X from Festus Akimboyewa says, it's tough for developing countries. Funny, many young people born in the UK are jackbuying from UK to Australia and Canada. UK is now recruiting prison officers from Nigeria, and many of them are sleeping in their vehicles because of lack of housing. Time government addressed the reasons why people are leaving Nigeria. It's a documentary I'm watching on Prime about poverty in the United States of America, and that people are literally living in their cars. I saw, like kind of college, and they've gone to 2 states. The issue she raised about the role of government is significant. There is no shying away from it. 34, almost 35, practically 35%. 35%, inflation is definitely telling on any economy. And that's why someone who is comfortable would say they want to leave Nigeria. Tell me if you think there is a role for states. Many times when we're talking about these things, we're talking about the federal government. Is there a way for states, governments? I'm always talking about state governments because it's like we always give them a pat in the back or a slap on the wrist all the time. Is there a role for states to track down the mental resources in their states by one way or the other, so we don't leave it all just to the federal government, going by what she said, that all of us must come together?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the push factors, it's not only the federal government, the states have responsibilities too. Even though they would have to come to look at the pull factors, the value of the pull factors, is something that we will find our youth will find very difficult to resist. And I will give you a very good example. When you look at the COVID, the COVID era or post-COVID, in UK, between November 2021 and January 2022, You know, they had 1.3 million jobs vacancies in UK, whereas people live in Nigeria, they can't get a job. So the allure is always there, and internet, social media has made it so easy for people to know about developments in different parts of the world. So we have that problem. The second issue in relation to the states is when we see policies being implemented in developed economies, within the context of globalization, we really need to know, study and understand the impact assessment on our own economy. When public funding of education was reduced in UK, for instance, the goal is with the intention to drive in foreign students with a view to, bring in capital from abroad to fund their own educational system. We accepted that. We chose to reduce, funding for our public university system without any expectation of any money coming into our own system. So what you see currently is that even aggressively, UK is busy trying to get foreign students in. As I'm speaking to you, 60% of the postgraduate students in UK today are foreign students. They are bringing enormous resources to those countries. That is why they reduced the public funding for education and created the top-up grants. But we fail to understand that. We simply absorb it. The state's government can do it differently. Each state can do it in line with their needs. We used to have what they call in the Southwest, when Awolowo was alive, free education. They have their own basic free health services and all that. So each state can do their own thing differently. You don't have to simply just adopt policies being implemented abroad without considering the impact on your own people. That is what. The other side of it is not just about jobs. There are people who are not just satisfied with the job they're doing because of career progression. You have issues with the way we handle our industrial relations problem in Nigeria. Look at ASU, for instance. ASU had reached an agreement with past governments since 2009. Till today, they are yet to implement that agreement. They have gone on strike countless times. So many students, got fed up. And because you can no longer predict when your word will go into the university and come out, people then felt, look, I better get my children abroad. These are part of the problems which we have. Industrial relations is very key. That is why when you mentioned Chris Ngige at that time, for me, it was a disaster. As Minister for Labor, to even say that doctors can leave, we had so many of them. Now, today, we can see the effect. In many rural areas, we only have nurses attending to people. It's only in the urban centers that you see doctors. So the state governments have major role to play. They need to make life more comfortable. Rural area roads need to be done. We need potable water. Okay. It's a sign of a failed state if the residents or citizens have to start digging borehole to provide water for themselves. The issue of power, which Professor mentioned, is also very critical. There are a lot of things people can do and achieve satisfaction, at least a measure of satisfaction.
So essentially you're saying the states need to wake up.
They have a role to play.
There's something that Dr. Medu, said the other time, and I'd like you to speak to the skills gap in the country. Someone already said that they're needing some skills in Abuja hospitals. And there are several other skill gaps all across Nigeria, again, 2 states. Because if people are comfortable, even if it's, minutely comfortable, I'm not sure that a good number of them will have, the interest of going out like that. On the one hand, the skills gap. On the other hand, the opportunities in the country. Do people know that the opportunities are there?
Thank you, Ayo. And so let me start with the skills gap. And you said I should tie it to states. I'm happy that we have 36 states in Nigeria, plus the FCT, meaning that if each of the states can start doing something from their own areas, cumulatively, we will have something all of us can see that will be significant, probably. Okay, and there's been a lot of research around skills in demand. And it also ties to region, just like we've been saying that in the developed areas, nations, They have skills that they're looking for. And that's why they're calling people to come and say, come and fill these gaps that we have here. Here, locally as well, we have skills gap in the health sector. It's very huge. You just said in Abuja Hospital, we don't have a professional and expertise for ENT. That's very serious. Okay, we have in the tech, so people are taking our tech experts, they're taking our health professionals, they're taking our education experts. Okay, and this is huge locally. And these are areas that we need to develop here in Nigeria. And to say what roles can states do? Let me speak to some of the things I've been involved recently. In Lagos State, for example, they have Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. One of the things Lagos State has been doing, and I'm not a politician, I'm just trying to say what other states can probably learn from. Okay, so yes, I consult on the project, so I can say that. One of the things they've done is they've done skill gap assessment in Lagos State, and they are focusing on youth. Youth in Nigeria, if we look at the demography and the population of Nigeria, they form the bulk. People under 30 form about 70% of Nigerian population. And if the baby boomers, like Prof said, have a gap abroad, we also have here in Nigeria. So we need to start feeling for the skills of tomorrow and today. So what they are doing after looking at the skills assessment survey was to now start training intentionally, government funding, partnering with other donors. And so when people finish, you are able to either move to a paid internship, paid job, or you go the entrepreneurial track, which also helps with job creation. So people will not lose hope. My friend said she went abroad and that people are happy to be washing plates because here they don't even have anything to feed themselves. That they're happy to wash plates to feed themselves because they can die of hunger here. So is that bad? In Katsina also, Katsina State, something they also are doing, they have an agency called KASEDA, Katsina Enterprise Development Agency. They just set up. A new governor came and decided to set up that. So if that can be replicated in most of the states, we will start, maybe start moving the needle, probably, and that will cumulatively help all of us here in Nigeria. And from the HR point of view, because it's not only just government, what can you and I do? From the HR point of view, people can start looking at how do we retain talent? Okay, in retaining talent, can we start looking at maybe do surveys from time to time, feel the pulse of our organization? Can we start having retention strategies like maybe offering incentives? If we can, small businesses form the bulk of businesses in Nigeria. So cost of doing business is high for them. They may not be able to do much in terms of having a competitive wage system. But there are other things that we can do, like maybe phantom shares, maybe a bit of work from home, remote work, flexibility. Can we have engagement, make them feel special, recognition? It could be something as basic as that. We can have long-term and short-term strategies, locally that we can do. And I think even the Nigerian orientation agencies, they also have a role to play. During Andrew's time, we used to hear, Andrew, don't check out. So we were even singing the song, all of us would be flowing, and it was registering. But what are they doing now? I think they've been quiet. So they should also wake up and start doing. All of us need to come and solve this problem together.
Okay, there's this, I don't know whether to call it a comment or an observation from Patrick. The most reason why guys Japa is to secure their future and that of their families. Our healthcare system is in a shambles, education has collapsed, infrastructure is moribund, insecurity is unprecedented, corruption is systemic, and the list is endless. That's from Patrick.
Well, this one is from Anonymous, very, very famous guy. Says, I qualify as a consultant in medicine in Nigeria. For 2 years in my state, where I was the only person in the specialty, I was not confirmed as a consultant for almost 2 years. So I Japa.
We need the Japa that really.
She's been talking about Japa, and a number of people have also said it. I've heard, I think Dr. Adeyemi also said it, that some people will Japa and the way they japa, without good thinking, they japa.
They will japa.
So, because the president has been going, all presidents, to the best of my knowledge, have been going all over the world and saying that people should come back to Nigeria. When they come back to Nigeria, what are they coming to?
One more comment, Prof, before you react to that one. Dirty December is making the Nigerians in diaspora realize that Nigeria is not as bad as they think. Because there was a huge influx in December. You remember that?
Yes.
Good.
And actually, yes, you talked about the comment before the last one, that our educational system is in shambles. But these people that are being, pulled out of here still went through the same educational system that we say is in shambles.
True.
But they say, come, we'll take you. But you know what? We'll retrain you. And so they gain from the retraining. And hopefully, when they ever think of Japada, then that training that they got will benefit Nigeria. We can't stop this, but we can embrace it. We can find ways to make it work for us. Retirees over there, through technology, can consult over here, so that they don't have to leave their so-called comfort. And the young people over here can. In fact, I met a young man who said, "I don't want to go abroad, but I want to work abroad." That's the what is it? The virtual or remote work. So you do remote work, you stay in Nigeria, and you enjoy whatever it is that you have to enjoy in Nigeria. So I don't think it's altogether bad. I think there are ways that the system also makes us do the right thing when the time comes.
I think the challenge is the balance, and it's what Mr. Shomi was also saying the other time. I think the challenge is the balance. If we lose more than we gain, it is definitely heart-rending. For instance, there's this mail that we have from someone, I think it is, the UCA, says, "I lost my son in 2016 because we could not get pediatric neurosurgeon." And so, at some point, someone could have decided to stay in this country. You would remember that the same UCH that we were talking about earlier, people came from all over the world.
From Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, the king of Saudi Arabia came to UCH
in Nigeria.
Ibadan. Please.
Ibadan.
Not just like Ibadan. To get medical help. And here someone is saying, unfortunately, lost a child because we couldn't get a pediatric neurosurgeon. So I think the challenge is the balance. How do we balance it? Dr. Mendon was also talking about that earlier. Yeah,
in the first instance, nobody can stop migration. It has always been.
We don't want to stop it.
It's also beneficial.
We want to reduce it.
Even the issue is not
the drain that we want to reduce.
It's for us to benefit, to tap into it, for our own self-enlightened interest. Nobody has ever been able to stop migration. The way the academic system is structured, like Prof will attest, is that they have what they call, you go on sabbatical, you go abroad and then you share knowledge with others, you retrain, and then you come back. So we've always been having that. What we have not gotten right is the balance currently. We have more people moving out than returning to Nigeria. There are some few people coming back, but not a lot. So we need to get that balance right. One of the ways to do that is make the environment conducive. Everything is not about money. It's not about salary. You can hand poor salary, and if the living condition is good, you'll be fine. We've been talking about infrastructure. How many people have bothered about food? What we have in Nigeria is the 34.8% is food inflation. It's cost-push inflation. And what do we need to do? Get the state governments, they control the land. We produce more food. If you produce more food, bring down, crash the prices of foodstuff, start exporting foodstuff, then you see more people are willing to come back, because it's not just about salary, it's also about the living conditions. So it's extremely difficult. If we are on the right path currently, we are investing in infrastructure massively, you know, in infrastructure. We've heard about new rail line to run from Lagos to Abuja. We've heard about Lagos coastal coastal road. We've heard about Sokoto to Badagry and all that. So we are beginning to address some of this problem, but we need to put in more resources to address the infrastructural deficit and address the issue of power. If we don't fix power, it's going to be extremely more difficult to ask people who are living in comfort to come back into discomfort.
Insecurity.
The issue of insecurity, we've been able to address it to some point in terms of degrading the capacity of Boko Haram. But then, like we know, terrorism mutates. It has mutated into banditry, into kidnapping. Then we have our youths, given the opulent lifestyle of our politicians, our youths are beginning to use, you know, the politicians' opulence as standard. So therefore, they're encouraged to get money by any means possible, even including, you know, going into cybercrime. So we actually need to look at what we're doing, look at our leaders, our political office holders. How do you ask people to tighten their belt when you are loosening your home belt? And then get the military. They're doing a fantastic job currently. Invest more in the military with a view to eliminate, including the Nigerian police force, with a view to deal with the issue of crime and insecurity in Nigeria.
Madam, you wanted to talk about Japa so much before we go.
Yeah, so Japa, there are a number of things that we can do. So people can Japa either using technology or physically. So in terms of technology, we can have systems in place that we can leverage on these skills that people abroad have, and they can actually develop systems here and support. There's something called knowledge management system. We don't have time. I did a research in that area, and the findings are so interesting. Maybe another time we can talk about that. So we can help manage system here, enhance the knowledge of the people that are here using technology. Okay, and people can actually come physically, maybe visiting experts. Government can guarantee security and some things that can, and like they do in Malaysia and some other countries, government can also provide incentives. Like if you want to come back home, we can give you maybe tax rebates, we can give you housing or something to make them to want to come back. So Japada, either partial Japada or full Japada. Okay. We can talk about that another time.
I get another time, but you know, before we go, Alero, Hakeem is saying, says, this syndrome has been with us from time immemorial. It is part of our neo-colonial mentality. Even when we had the strongest economy, our people were still traveling abroad, not only to study, but to settle down. You can hardly find any family in Nigeria, especially from the southern part, that doesn't have families who are permanently settled in abroad. So Japa or brain is not totally induced by the economic situation in the country, but more of mentality syndrome. In view of the chronic economic situation in some of these abroad countries, e.g. UK, there is need for a very strong enlightenment campaign for our younger generation to think twice before going abroad. We need to start thinking of Japada. I said that particular thought that you expressed here, Hakeem, is also corroborated by Festus Akimboyewa, who says, we will never know that our country is not terrible until we travel to other countries. So I don't want to try that one. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. Professor Abiola Awoshika Fakweto is Director, founding CEO of Olawoyin Awoshika School of Innovative Studies. Oasis, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Funke Medun is an HR development practitioner. Thank you for your time. As well as Mr. Biodun Showumi, who is a social commentator. We appreciate your time this morning.
Just before we go, one more, this time from Fola Shade. And the NOA needs to do more to make people know that outside is not that rosy. A lot of people that Japa are stranded, all because they overrated conditions out there. Doctors with specialists should be placed on incentives outside the normal salaries.
So in other words, the Japa has just Ja.
Not totally bad abroad as well.
Well, we agree, but home sweet home.
To come back and
I remember that song by Chief Commander Ebenezer, but unfortunately I can't sing right.